What makes you different? One of the hardest things about working with a new client when I'm very first talking to them before we're even really in a business relationship is that they don't know what's different about them. And what they think is different about them is oftentimes really not that different, doesn't really stand out in their industry, and it's actually not that interesting either. Let's take a few examples, for instance, of what's not really different or not that interesting. So when you use certain words to describe your unique selling proposition or what makes you different, they're kind of bland and you don't back them up. That's not really interesting or different. So here's some examples. Words like innovative, market-driven, premier don't really stand out. They don't really have a lot of emotion behind them, and everyone kind of uses them. They've kind of just become actually general buzzwords in the business world. Years in business, not really that interesting. Since 1977, cool. Maybe it's a little vintage. I guess it really depends on the brand, but really it just means that you've survived until now. If you're not saying 200 years serving this small community and being a very vital support system to that community, not that interesting, not that different. Here's some examples of what's actually different. Only use these if you can say you're the best, the first, the fastest to do something, the first to market, the first to do this or that, or the makers of this really one-of-a-kind product, and that you can actually back it up, say that. That's really important. Here's a couple examples of companies that really do a good job at showing how they're different and communicating that in a way that sticks with people. Some of these examples you might have heard of before, some probably not. So number one is Domino's. What do you know about Domino's? You get your pizza in 30 minutes or less, or it's free. That really made them stand out. FedEx. They will get your package there overnight. We know this with FedEx. Nike. Okay, so Nike has a lot of competitors that also focus on shoes. The thing with Nike is they primarily focus on athletic shoes of a lot of different kinds, whereas someone like Adidas maybe has more variations for style. Someone like Solomon is really focused on running and hiking. Nike claims the space of being the ultimate maker of athletic shoes. So think about it with yourself. What's different about you? I noticed for myself there's a lot of writers out there, and I noticed that one of the things that really made me stand out is that a lot of people who are also writing content, who are also copywriting, they come from a different educational background than me, and they focus a little more on flowery writing, complicated words, wordplay, stuff that sounds nice but doesn't necessarily sell. So I saw a little bit of an advantage for me there to move into a sales space and be able to show them that I could sell without using just flowery writing or overcomplicated words. In fact, some of those big, long words actually lose people instead. Another thing was that I worked in marketing for 7 years before I went freelance. So I noticed that when I was working with other freelancers, I had a strategic mind that allowed me to be more forward-thinking with something rather than just being one tactic like a blog post that gets put out and kind of dies. I'm a little more forward-thinking with where things are going to go and how they tie into an overall overarching marketing strategy and actually bigger business goals. So here is really what you have to know about making you different. You actually need time in your industry to discover what that is. So I worked for many businesses that had been around longer than I had been alive, and they didn't actually know what made them different. And it actually took me time working in that industry to discover what actually made us stand out. So take your time finding what that is for you. Do you already know what makes you stand out? Let me know in the comments what makes you stand out from your peers or your competitors.